The lights went out first, and that was my only warning. I am Valara Nashtor, third in line to the Ashen Throne, and in that moment of sudden darkness, standing in the middle of the threshold gala on Ceres Station, I understood that someone in that glittering crowd wanted me gone before the night ended. My hand found the edge of a marble table. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it over the screams starting to rise around me. Glasses shattered somewhere to my left. A woman cried out, and then, through the chaos, I heard a calm voice right behind me. "Get down," Ethan Cole said. I dropped without thinking. Ethan was my escort, assigned to me weeks earlier by the human delegation as part of the peace treaty between my people and Earth. I had barely spoken to him since he arrived. I had decided, the very first day, that he was nothing more than a formality, a quiet man with tired eyes and no visible skill, sent to stand beside me and look official. I had even asked my handmaiden to have him replaced. So I regretted that thought the second a blade cut through the air where my throat had been only a heartbeat before. Ethan moved so fast I barely registered it. One instant he stood behind me, still and unremarkable. The next, he had turned that attacker aside and sent him crashing into a pillar. The station's emergency lights flickered on, casting everything in a dim red glow, and I finally saw what I had walked into. There were more of them, figures in dark travel cloaks, moving between the guests, cutting off every exit. I counted 4, then 6, then lost count entirely as panic set in. This was not a simple robbery. This was an attempt to end the treaty before it could ever be signed, and I was the easiest way to do it. "Stay behind me," Ethan said, and for the first time, I heard something different in his voice. Not fear. Focus. I did as he said. I had no other choice. My personal guards were trained for ceremony, not for this. 2 of them were already down, and the rest were fighting their own battles across the room. Ethan was the only thing standing between me and a dozen strangers who wanted me dead. A second attacker came from the side, aiming for my escort's back. Ethan turned at the last moment, caught the man's arm, and used his own momentum to send him sliding across the polished floor. A third dropped from the balcony above, and Ethan sidestepped without even looking up, as if he had heard the fabric of the man's coat shift in the air. I pressed myself against the wall, watching a man I had dismissed as useless move through danger like he had done this 100 times before. Maybe he had. I realized, in that moment, that I knew almost nothing about him. 2 more attackers came together, moving in perfect coordination, striking from opposite sides at the same instant. I recognized their training. It belonged to an order famous across 3 systems for never missing, for never leaving gaps an opponent could exploit. Ethan found the gap anyway. He twisted between them, using the narrow space of the corridor to his advantage, forcing them to hesitate for just long enough. One found himself disarmed and pinned against the wall. The other stumbled back, and Ethan used the moment to knock the weapon from his hand entirely. Neither of them got back up in time to matter. 7, I counted silently. 7 down, and still more coming. A voice crackled through the station's comm system, ordering everyone to stay calm and remain where they were, which was almost funny, because there was nowhere to go. The doors had been sealed from the outside. Whoever planned this had thought of everything, except for the man standing in front of me. Ethan took a hit across the side that made him grunt, the first sound of pain he had allowed himself all night. I called out his name, and he raised a hand without turning, telling me without words to stay back. I obeyed, even though every part of me wanted to help, even though I had no idea how I could. He kept moving. An 8th attacker fell. A 9th tried to grab me from behind, slipping past Ethan's guard for just a moment, and my heart stopped until Ethan appeared out of nowhere, pulling the man off me and putting him down before I even finished gasping. "Are you hurt?" he asked, eyes scanning me quickly. "No," I said, my voice shaking. "I am not hurt." "Good," he said, and turned back to face the last of them. 3 remained, spread out, circling carefully now, aware that whatever they had expected from this fight, it was not what they were getting. One of them said something in a language I did not recognize, and the other two nodded, and I understood that they were changing their plan. They were not trying to win anymore. They were trying to escape with something to show for their failure. They came at me together, all three at once, betting that even Ethan could not stop three attackers moving from three directions at the same time. They were wrong. Ethan grabbed the nearest table and swept it into the path of the first attacker, buying himself half a second. He used that half second to close the distance on the second, disarming him with a move so quick I could not even describe what I had seen. The third reached me first, close enough that I could see the surprise in his eyes when Ethan's hand closed around his wrist from behind, stopping him inches from where I stood. For a moment, nobody moved. The station lights flickered fully back on, revealing the scene in stark detail. 12 figures, all subdued, all disarmed, scattered across the promenade like pieces from an unfinished puzzle. Security teams finally broke through the sealed doors, flooding the room with light, and shouted orders, far too late to have made any difference. Ethan stood in the middle of it all, breathing hard, one hand pressed to his side where the earlier hit had landed. He looked tired in a way I had not seen before, but steady, the way a person looks when they have done exactly what they were trained to do, and nothing more. I walked toward him slowly, my legs still unsteady beneath me. "You are unharmed," he said, before I could speak, checking me over with a quick, practiced glance. "I am," I said, "because of you." He shook his head slightly, as if the idea embarrassed him. "I was just doing my job," he said. I looked at the 12 figures being escorted away by station security, each one part of a plot that would have ended my life and shattered the treaty before it was ever signed. Then I looked at Ethan, at the quiet, unremarkable man I had judged the very first day we met, and I felt something close to shame. "I told my handmaiden you were unnecessary," I admitted. "I told her you would be gone within the month." Ethan allowed himself the smallest smile. "I heard about that," he said. "I am sorry," I told him, "and I meant it completely." "Don't be," he said. "Most people look at me and see the same thing you did. It usually works in my favor." I did not understand at first, and then I did. He had let me underestimate him. He had let everyone underestimate him, because a threat nobody takes seriously is a threat nobody prepares for, and that made him more dangerous, not less. In the days that followed, the treaty was signed without further incident, thanks in no small part to the fact that whoever had organized the attack had lost every single person they sent. The Outer Compact denied involvement. My own court investigated quietly. The truth mattered less to me than the outcome. My people and his were no longer at war, and I was alive to see it happen. I asked Ethan, weeks later, why he had never told me about his past, about the years of service that had shaped him into someone capable of standing alone against 12 trained attackers without losing. "You never asked," he said simply. "I am asking now," I told him. He considered that for a long moment, staring out at the stars beyond the station window. And then he told me a little, just enough. A childhood on a small farm. Years spent training for conflicts most people never hear about. Friends lost along the way. He did not dwell on any of it, and I did not push him to. What I learned, more than any single detail, was this. My people build our protectors from birth, shaping them with technology and careful design until they are exactly what we need them to be. Ethan's people had no such luxury. They had only time and hardship and the will to keep standing no matter how many times life tried to knock them down. That, more than any augmentation, was what had saved my life on Ceres Station. I no longer see him as a formality. I see him standing quietly at my shoulder during every meeting, every gathering, every quiet walk through the gardens of the Ashen Court, and I know exactly what he is capable of, even when no one else in the room does. Let them underestimate him, I think now, whenever a new visitor glances his way with the same doubt I once carried. Let them believe what they want. I know better. I found out the night 12 strangers tried to end my life, and one quiet man refused to let them.